The radius will be 4 millimeters and the height will be 11 millimeters. Each cubic millimeter of silver costs 21 cents. What will be the total cost of the silver to make these earrings? So you know that you have to use the 21 cents this time, right? Because the real question is about cost. So the earrings, and this is an easier question for people who wear earrings, but let's go to the whiteboard.
Okay, let's see.
If you can imagine a little silver cylinder, you need to use the volume formula because you're really going to make this cylinder out of silver. So it's not the surface area because you're really going to make a cylinder. If they said something like maybe you're going to cover a piece of wood with some silver, or you're going to cover brass or something like that, you know, sometimes things are silver plated. That would just be like surface area. So since they're not talking about plating in silver, you want to say that you're really going to make the entire cylinder out of silver. So that means you're doing volume. And that's pi r squared times the height. So now you're just replacing that the radius is 4. And the height is 11. So did you get this far?
I got the 4 times 4.
Okay.
I got times 4 times 11.
That's 18 times 11.
So that means you picked out the right formula, which is good. And this is you on your way, right? So when you do 16 times 11, what did you get?
44.
I got 176.
So if you got that far, then you're also great, right? So when you do pi times 176, what did you get?
552.64.
So we'll just round it to 552, right? If you got anything around there, you're correct, right? With just getting the volume of the cylinder. So let me put the wavy equal signs. Oops.
Oh, okay.
But what you have to think of is what is the question that they're asking you, right? So 552, what does that represent? The volume of what?
Volume of the cylinder.
Right, so now you can say to yourself, you should multiply that by the amount of silver, by the cost of silver.
So 552.
550.
I got 115.92. Maybe I think I did something wrong with it. 115.92.
Well, it depends on what number you had in there. I'm using the 552 still.
Okay. Let's see, 552.
Point whatever, right? So if you got the 115.92, you might be feeling like it should be A, right?
Yes.
But that is really just representing one earring, right? So the number that, let's see, let me use my calculator.
Ah, gosh.
Oh, so it's B.
Yes.
Kevin was right.
Kaven?
Yes, Kevin.
Great job. And Kaven, do you even wear earrings? You picked up on that, right? So this is the idea when you're picking out a formula, you're like, okay, this is the volume for one cylinder, right? If I multiply the 552, what was it, 0.576? Let me see, 550. 0.64. So let me add that back in.
Oh, I got, okay. I got 232.10, but it says rounded out.
That's only because I dropped the change. So like if I do the 552.64 times 21, that comes out to 116.05. So that's a little closer to A. And you remember we're rounding with pi, so it just depends on what you take your decimal out to. But then when you double that for 2 earrings, you're gonna get B, right? Now the other thing that you're looking at is C. C says 552.92. That's if you just are paying attention to the volume amount. So this is how multiple choice can be a little tricky, because if you get 552 point something on your calculator, you might want to pick C. And even the people who are still thinking about doubling the volume will want to pick D, right? Because they're like, oh, okay, the 552 is 1 earring, let me double that. So the answer must be D. But what you have to really pay attention to is they didn't ask the volume of the cylinder, they asked the cost of the silver to make the cylinder. So this one, the answer is B.
160.
So the 116 is just 1, right? So what you're really saying is 116 times 2 for both earrings. And that you have to pay attention to also, that when it's saying she wants to make a pair of earrings, it's already implied that you're using 2. So this is like your focus is on both of them. And when you go through a word problem like this, we said sometimes that a word can represent a number. So sometimes the number symbols stand out, like 4, 11, 21. But the word pair is a number. You're saying, okay, there's going to be 2 of them. So it's not explicitly saying she's going to make 2 earrings and you're looking at the number 2. You have to read the word pair as 2 and be thinking about a set of earrings. So any questions about that one?
Yeah, no,
The request is
not
B.
that one.
Do you have a question, Josette?
The request is B.
Yep, the answer is B.
Answer B. Okay.
All right, so now we're looking at number 5. A tent at a county fair is in the shape of a pyramid. The base of the tent is a square with each side length 24 meters, and the tent encloses a space of 960 cubic meters. How tall is the central tent pole? So now for this one, you have to find the formula for
Where?
a pyramid.
Oh. That's,
I put
Okay.
for
all right.
Tax was.
by the 2 pi are
Not great.
296. Ah. Oh, I
That's
forgot that I
fine.
had to put 1/3 instead of 24 over divided by.
Right. So the pyramid is a third of the square, kind of like the cone is a third of the cylinder. So what you need is you need to figure out the base and multiply by the height, but this time they're giving you the volume. So that's whenever they give you that capital letter like that, they give you the perimeter, give you the volume, give you the area, that means you're gonna do the complementary operation.
Says base of the tent square is size 24.
So they're telling you the volume is 960.
I got the answer, but I don't know how I did it.
What is the base?
And I got
It was 24.
The base is 24, and it's a square base.
that's
So that means you should say 24 times 24. So they told you that the base, well, let me actually put the number 24 there. So the base is a square that's 24. So you know if you have to figure out the area of the base, it's going to be 24 times 24. So it's really the 960 and then a third, however many threes you want to use.
319.
So you're saying that 1/3 of 576 is how much?
76 is 191. 191.
So I took mine out a couple extra points, so I got 192. But
Okay.
it doesn't matter because you're going to be able to see the difference in the ones that are, your choices for answers. So all you're really doing is dividing now. Because they gave you the volume and the regular formula is multiplication, that means you're going to do the complementary operation. So if normally you would say the base times the height times 1/3 gives you the volume, now that they're giving you the volume already, you're going to end up doing division. And that will give you the height. So 960 divided by 192.
It's 80. Oh, never mind. I put
5.
Right, so you have B as your answer. So this is falling back on your algebra skills, right? When you read the problem and you read that they're giving you the volume, you should automatically be thinking is, I'm going to end up doing division because the regular formula is multiplication and I already know the volume. I'm trying to just figure out what the height should have been. And again, you're using algebra, but you want to remember that when you're doing multiple choice, the answer is going to be there most of the time. Unless you get some problem where it's none of these, which they don't give you that every single time, then you could take a look at all the answers and try to replace them in the formulas too. So if you ever flag something to the end to redo it, you can always take that approach if you're not sure between two answers, or if you're just like, let me see if A works, let me see if B works, let me see if C works, let me see if D works with what I'm thinking. This is why you want to read the problem and predict a little bit. Like this one is, they gave me the volume, I'm predicting that I'm going to need to do division, right? Because then that's going to give you the idea that you're going to come down to a smaller number. So now let's take a look at number 6. So anybody get the answer for number 6 already?
I did mine. I got 2 answers.
Okay.
I got the 528 and I got the 336.
All right. So let's take a look at this one. It's one of those.
But I'm not.
So that means you're on the right path, right? So now what I'm going to say is we did read this one because we were looking at them out of order when we were just talking about a tent. This says you want to make the canvas tent shown. The tent will be pitched on top of grass, so no canvas is needed for a floor. How much canvas will you need to make the tent? So now what you're looking at is, what is this shape, so that you can make sure you pick out the right formula. So you've got this kind of like triangular prism. And then if you're doing the canvas, you're thinking of surface area. So that means you want to say, I should do this piece right here. That's on the right of the tent. And this piece is 6 by 12. Right?
Yeah.
Or I'm sorry, it's 10 by 12 because the 10 is over here. 6 is for the height of the triangle. So you should do 2 that are 10 by 12. So what is 10 times 12?
120.
120. So that means the left side of the tent and the right side of the tent are going to be 240. So any questions about that? When you're looking at this, the hardest thing is just reading the measurements. They're putting the 10 feet over here for this slant. They're putting the 12 feet over here for the bottom. So when you want to decide how much canvas you need, you have to multiply 10 times 12 and get 120, but you're doing surface area with the canvas. So you need that on both sides. So now you're already up to 240. Now you have to say you need the front flap and the back flap of the tent, right? But it's telling you you do not need the bottom. So you're at 240, and now you need to do the triangles that are the front and the back. So what is the formula for area of a triangle?
It's half times base.
Exactly, 1/2 of the base times the height. So now you can say to yourself, let me take half of the base is 8. And what is 8 times 6?
I got it. Okay.
That's the 48, right? And then you want to double that too, because you need this front part and you need this back part. So that's going to make the answer A, that you only are going to get up to 336. You're going to add up the 240 and then 48 plus 48. So 240 plus 96 is the 336.
Okay. So the second part, when we did the 10 times 12, we got the 120, we got the 240.
Mm-hmm.
Then I did the 16 times 6. I got 96, and then I just add the 96 with the 240. Is that the longer step?
No, that's a shortcut because you're doing 2 triangles, right? So you can just say to yourself, you're not going to take half, but the real formula for the triangle for area is 1/2 of the base times the height. So if you just say 16 times 6, you're not taking half, but you can do that because you have, if you just do base times the height, you're basically looking at the 2 triangles as a rectangle or square.
Okay.
So like what you have to do about the tent is say that it's a triangle piece. So this 16 and 6, you're going to say 1/2 of 16 times 6. So we were saying you could just take half of 16 in your mind and say 8 times 6 is the 48, and you are going to end up doubling that to count for 2 triangles. So if you know that up front and you just want to say 16 times 6 is the 96, then that is correct to do, but you want to make sure that you're understanding that you're already doubling the 2 triangles. Because if you don't think of that, you might double the 96 to think of the front and the back, right?
Okay.
So what you want to say is that this part, you know, that's going back is a rectangle, and that's why you're doing, this one was 120 because it was 12 times 10, right? And then you're doing that on the other side. The front is a triangle, so it's really 1/2 the base times the height, and you're doing that on the other side. So what you had to do with this one is say you only needed the 4 sides because they're telling you that you're not going to do the grass bottom.
Okay.
So the only mistake that you could make is adding up the 16 by 12. Like if you're really, really focused on surface area, but you have to pay attention to it saying that you don't need a floor. So that would only be the left, the right, the front, and the back, no bottom.
So in other ways, do you mean, in other ways, do you have the fabric, the long fabric, its measurement is 240, and then you're gonna make a square,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're gonna cut it as a triangle and add it on the sides.
Right.
That's, okay.
So if you say 16 by 6, if you're really thinking of composing it like you're saying, you have the canvas and you're cutting the measurements, then you can think of that. Like I'm gonna have the square, I'm gonna cut that in half. So that's how Gladys just said, I'm just saying 16 by 6 is the 96. But if you really take a look at just the triangles, then you're gonna end up with the 48 plus 48 is 96. So it's the same thing. That's why we're talking about it in groups sometimes, so that we can see what other people are thinking, because that's what you're trying to say to yourself. Oh, okay, I really understand the thinking behind the problem. That way, because it's multiple choice again, even if you're not sure, you can approach it in the best way. Even if you're just like, I know it's 240 and 240, I don't need the bottom, I'm gonna pick the lowest number. Because I only have the 2 triangles left, right? So you would still be saying you're gonna pick A. Because if you can figure out that you just need 240 for the sides, you know it's not D. Because that's almost 700, right? So when you're looking at what is the process, it can help you either just get the right answer from the beginning, or definitely eliminate, even like how Gladys was saying, it might be A or B. If you think of that, you still have a 50-50 chance of getting the right answer, even just guessing between the A and the B. So that's always what you want to do, is as best as you can. If it seems like something that you've heard of before, make the prediction, aim to figure it out, and then at least aim to eliminate something, because that'll give you the better chance of just guessing. So that finishes the skill review. And I think we're gonna just maybe take a look at the first 2 for the skill practice. So now this is the next page. And then what we're gonna do is all of the rest of them tomorrow, so that we can make sure we complete this section. And I'll probably load the new PDF today or tomorrow, but it will really be for Monday, which is going back to the task exercise book, like the one with grids, but it'll be all this subject. So this is a lot of shapes, and I think that these are the more difficult shapes. So again, you're not trying to memorize so much, but you are trying to memorize the fact that you're doing the base, the cross section times the height, and really just focus on memorizing the flat shapes the most. So this one, there's no picture, but they're describing a square pyramid. So that's the main one that we're looking at. Fernanda made a square pyramid out of sand at the beach. The base of the pyramid was 4 feet on each side. The lateral surface area of the pyramid was 24 feet. What was the slant height? So now this one again, she's got a solid pyramid. So, and they're telling you surface area. So you want to start out with that formula. So the perimeter times the slant height. So here they're saying that the base of the pyramid is 4 feet on each side. So when you're talking about the perimeter, that means you're going to say 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4, because they're telling you it's a square bottom. And they also told you that the surface area was 24. So what you're really saying is, what is 1/2 of 16? So 8 times the 8 times the slant height has to give you the 24 that is the surface area. So this one too, because they're giving you the surface area, you're going to end up doing division. So the answer is C, 3 feet. Now, let's take a look at that in the worksheet. So this one was surface area, example number 7. And this has a lot of a breakdown, because it's saying find the perimeter. In this problem, it's just telling you one side is 4. But because you're already imagining a square pyramid, this is when you're doing this top part that says 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4, or 4 times 4. That's going to give me the perimeter of the base. So now what they're saying is that turns into the base, right? So finding the area of the base. So this one has 1/2 the perimeter slant height plus the base. You just need to find the slant height, so you don't even need to worry about the base. So when I wrote the formula, I just wrote this part, 1/2 PL. Because the question is just asking you about the slant height. So did you have any questions about this one?
I'm just sinking in.
It's sinking in. Yeah, this is, again, I think like the surface area and pyramid are more challenging formulas because you've got slant height, you've got the base of the pyramid, you've got the triangles that are coming to form the pyramid. So this is a more complicated shape. Most likely, even when you do some of the practice exercises, they just have cylinder, maybe sphere. They have the rectangular prism. So chances are you're not even going to get a pyramid. Like, not saying that it's not worth your time to do the activity, but more than likely you're going to get one of the basic shapes. So this one is just saying you have to understand what it means by talking about the lateral surface area. So that is the slant. That's another thing that you have to kind of translate yourself, is the fact that they're saying lateral surface area, that's the slant. And that's another thing that is presented with different vocabulary. You have to translate that. So now, last but not least for the day is number 2. It says, what is the volume of the figure below? And this is what we're actually moving towards in the last section, which I think some people did look at on study jams, but this idea of 2 shapes coming together. So this is what we're saying could be like a barn, maybe, or a little shed or something. If they want to know the whole volume, you have to take a look at the fact that this is a triangular prism and this is a rectangular prism. So take a minute to, well, I'll put you in the groups to talk about the approach for number 2.
Okay.
So let me open up the breakout rooms.
I use the area. First I did the perimeter, then I did the area, which is 2 length height plus 2 width height, and then plus 2 length width. I said width. I got 45. I don't know, did anyone agree with me or?
Length. And altogether is 6,600, but that's about it because I didn't do the triangle.
All right, welcome back. So for this one, did you come up with a volume for the whole figure?
45.
Yes, 45,000.
I use a rectangular prism formula, the perimeter and the base area formula.
That is correct. So you're just saying, well, is anybody else in here? Are they still in the breakout rooms? Uh-oh, did it disconnected? You have to find the area of two different things. Or I'm sorry, you have to find the volume of two different things.
Took me forever, but I think I got it, yeah.
So the first one, you've got volume is length times width times height. And we'll just say the first one is the rectangle part. You're just saying 30 times 30 times 40. So for the rectangular prism, you've got 36,000.
Oh, let's see.
So 30 times 30 times 40, that's going to give you the bottom part of the shape. But now you got to figure out the triangular prism. So this is where we're saying that any kind of prism could just be the base multiplied by the depth, which is a new height. So for the triangle, you're still going to do volume. So you're going to find the volume, the area of the triangle. So we've got that the base of the triangle is 30 because we're going to borrow that from the bottom, right? So the bottom part of the triangle is 30 and the height of the triangle is 15. So you're already saying 15 times 15, right? Because you're saying 1/2 of 30 is 15. So what is 15 times 15?
30. More. 225.
25.
225. So what you're thinking is the 225 is the area of the triangle. That's the base of the top shape. So now all you have to do is multiply 225 times the length of that triangular prism. So that's going to be 225 times what?
3.
300.
Nope.
All right.
Now this is where you're back at the thinking of it like the deli. So the triangle is the cross section. The length of the whole triangular prism is really 40. Because if you were going to take that and keep slicing triangles, the depth of the whole shape is 40. So you're saying that 25 times 40.
Oh, from the
So this is what you're thinking. In order to do this shape, you need to say the 36,000, that is the rectangle, plus the 9,000, that is the triangle.
45.
Right, yep,
Yeah, 45.
45. So you're
Yeah.
at 45,000. So now if you get one of these shapes, this is what the whole next section is going to talk about, are these combination or composite shapes, where you might have, now that you know sphere, you might have a half of a sphere on top of a cylinder. Or like this one, a triangular prism on top of a rectangular prism. And again, we're looking at all these shapes in real life, right? That this could be a shed or a barn or a block, where now you're seeing that it's two shapes on top. So we said this could be like maybe the table that we used to use on the first floor was an oval, which is kind of like, let's see. If we had the table and we're saying, oh, it's a rectangle, but on the sides, it's curved, right? Now you might have to combine the fact that you know circle with rectangle. Or you're doing something like this one. I'm gonna draw a house. That becomes the square with the triangle. So you might have a composite shape that takes, you know, a couple of formulas into consideration. If you got the 45,000, that means you did the steps in the right way, where you're gonna say, let me find the volume of one, and then let me find the volume of another one, and let me add them up together. That's how I'm gonna find the volume of this shape. So that is what we're working on today in class. But what we wanna do for the homework today or tomorrow morning before the class is the next couple of questions. So that one was number 2. So now we have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Those are gonna be the ones that we do today and tomorrow morning in order to finish out this section.